Horror fans have been eating well with an influx of many horror games in the past few years, especially from the indie scene. 2022 in particular was very exciting as the revivals of long dead or dormant franchises were announced, such as Fatal Frame, Alan Wake, Alone in the Dark, Silent Hill, and a remake of the amazing Resident Evil 4. With 2022 nearing its end, let's take a look back at some of the most amazing survival horror games that were either released this year or are right around the corner. Number 1, Remorse: The List. A survival horror game made by longtime Half-Life 1 modders with plenty of horror mods under their belt. Remorse is set in the developer's own Remorse universe in a little Hungarian town which has a name almost as scary for me to pronounce as the game itself. The game features an expansive map with varied environments, amazing audio design, stunning visuals, and some very haunting imagery and creatures with unique characteristics and designs. Players must piece together the story themselves by investigating clues given via a list. Players can approach the game any way they like with free exploration, limited weapons and resources, and objects that add to the overall world. And this includes things that are related to the lore, such as videotapes and audio recordings. Number 2, Tormented Souls. Tormented Souls harkens back to the roots of the survival horror genre with clear inspirations from classics such as Alone in the Dark and Resident Evil. The game uses fixed camera angles and mixes it with dynamic camera movement to evoke horror and tension. You play as Caroline Walker searching for the lost twin girls in a mansion-turned-hospital. The mansion is filled with enemies of different types that will test you, in addition to many puzzles that will leave you confused. You also get access to an alternate reality within the game through the use of mirrors. The game reminds you of much of classic survival horror games, while setting up its own identity for those looking for something new in the genre while also on the prowl for some sort of familiarity. The Callisto Protocol. The Callisto Protocol is shaping up to be one of the premier names in the survival horror genre. That is if the developers can truly deliver what they have promised. It's by one of the co-creators of Dead Space, and the resemblances are very clear between the two. The game is set in a prison colony on Callisto, a moon of the planet Jupiter. Players need to survive as prisoners start to transform into grotesque monsters and uncover the truth behind it. The game features diverse hand-to-hand combat and range combat, along with the visceral combat that is not unknown to Dead Space fans, which includes hacking off limbs, blasting legs, and so much more. The game is set to release on December 2 on PlayStation 4 and 5, Xbox Series X and S, and of course the PC. Number 4, Signalis. Signalis is another survival horror game with a retro aesthetic. It gained recognition when it was among Tribeca's official selections. Set in a dystopian future, you control a humanoid android technician, or replica in the game's jargon, by the name of Elster, as she explores an off-world government facility looking for her partner and seeking answers. According to the developers, the game is inspired by classic cosmic horror and the works of Stanley Kubrick, Hideaki Anno, and David Lynch. The game has amazing sound design and haunting creatures that you encounter and must evade or eliminate while carefully managing your own limited resources. The game also features plenty of puzzles and items that offer greater insight into the world of Signalis. It is truly a must-play game for not only horror fans, but gamers in general. Number 5, Observo. Observo is a third-person survival horror game inspired by the classic survival horror games of the early 2000s. And the influences are vivid. You play as Edgar, a man on a business trip to a small town who has to find a place to spend the night at the last minute. However, strange things start happening, and now Edgar must escape while he still can. The game focuses on atmospheric horror and so has amazing sound design and world aesthetic, along with a variety of puzzles, inventory management, and strange creatures that should be evaded rather than encountered. Number 6, Choo Choo Charles. An open-world survival horror shooter in which you try to put as much distance as you can between yourself and a clown/spider/train hybrid creature named Charles. Quite bizarre to say the least, but at least it's an interesting concept. You need to navigate an island on a regular train of your own, and you can get off of it as well. Complete missions and side quests to obtain parts to upgrade your train so that it has a better chance against Charles, and follow the main questline, which will have you face off against Charles in a final duel. Number 7, Evil Nun Broken Mask. This is a remake for PC of the same game that was a very successful game for mobile devices. The nun kidnaps you when you are sent to a religious summer camp, and you must now escape. The game focuses on the atmosphere as you traverse an abandoned school to escape the grasp of the nun as she relentlessly chases you around everywhere. You can play the game stealthily or use a more offensive approach by shooting gumballs and activating booby traps. The game also features puzzles in classic survival horror fashion, and all this is backed up by stunning visuals. Number 8, Phobia St. Dymphna Hotel. This is certainly one of the more unique games this year. A psychological horror game from a first-person perspective with a dash of exploration and survival. You play as an amateur journalist as he investigates a decadent hotel that serves as the home of a technologically advanced cult. You investigate the hotel during different time periods and face off against enemies both human and not. The game has very impressive visuals and sound design and a compelling story, making it a game someone should definitely check out. Number 9, Dying Light 2. Few were unaware of this, a sequel to 2015's well-received Dying Light. This one is an improvement in every sense. It features much tighter gameplay with improved parkour, weapon customization, and so much more, coupled with an amazing narrative with multiple endings. It has a much larger map than its predecessor, with distinct regions and loot to craft weapons and items, and also has an optional co-op like its predecessor. Number 10, Evil Dead: The Game. This is based on the popular classic horror movie Evil Dead, and is an asymmetric multiplayer survival horror game in which the player can play as Ash Williams or one of his many friends from the franchise. The game features many maps based on locations from the franchise and can be played with friends. The official description reads, "Play as a team of 4 survivors, exploring, looting, managing your fear, and finding key items to seal the breach between worlds in a game that is inspired by all 3 original Evil Dead films, as well as the Starz original Ash vs. Evil Dead television series." You can also choose to side with evil by taking control of the Kandarian demon to hunt Ash and others, while possessing environmental objects and much more. The game is currently available for PlayStation 4, PlayStation 5, Xbox One, Xbox Series X and S, Nintendo Switch, and PC on the Epic Store. Number 11, the Backrooms series. The Backrooms has started as an urban legend creepypasta and has evolved into multiple media in a short amount of time, much like the Slender Man. Several games were released this year with the same backdrop and theme, but different approaches, such as Escape the Backrooms, an online multiplayer game with 4-player co-op, proximity voice chat, and more features. Many games have small differences, but all focus on atmospheric horror and survival, evading enemies to explore the backrooms and hopefully escaping alive. The games have amazing sound design and a very creepy aesthetic that fits into the roots of the urban legend. Number 12, Gloomwood. Gloomwood is an amazing game with a very unique setting and aesthetic, taking clear inspiration from the Cthulhu mythos and Bloodborne. It is a stealth survival horror FPS from the producers of Dusk, Amid Evil, and Faith. This game takes place in an unknown Victorian city filled with human enemies and horrifying creatures, and this has you exploring the city's various locations, looking for weapons and supplies, solving puzzles, and seeking answers. The game lays heavy emphasis on stealth, as many enemies are much more dangerous than they let on. Gloomwood is currently in early access on Steam and is available on PC only. Number 13, Nemesis Distress. Nemesis Distress is the video game adaptation of the famous board game Nemesis. It is a very unique multiplayer survival horror game with a first-person perspective. Taking place on a ship that has been infiltrated by a deadly alien species, each player will receive an objective unknown to the rest of the participants and will have 40 minutes to complete it, with the horror aspect playing a major part. Co-op does not mean that the other players are your allies, as they may be planning to sabotage you or make use of you as well. The game has impressive visuals and sound design, with the sound playing a significant role in the gameplay as well. And number 14, Saturnalia. Saturnalia is sure to turn some heads upon first look. Saturnalia has a very unique art style that you don't see in many games these days. Developed by Italy-based studio Sant'Arragione, Saturnalia is influenced heavily by the folklore of Sardinia, Italy, and is inspired by Italian giallo horror films. In the game, you control 4 different characters, all connected through a mysterious storyline that ties back to the haunting traditions of an ancient village. Each time you die, the village changes as you start the game again, and features a variety of puzzles as you go through the game, mostly unguided and trying to piece the story together yourself. And that's it for the list. Let us know if we missed anything, and if you were able to find a hidden gem somewhere in this list, feel free to click the subscribe button. It really helps the channel, and of course, thank you for tuning in.